Right, welcome everybody. I have got world-class trainer Kevin Barry on the line with me. Great of you to join us, Kevin. How was everything in the UK recently with your fight against Hughie Fury? Joseph Parker's fight against Hughie Fury.
Adam, it was a really solid experience for Joe. It was his first real fight on foreign soil. Of course, we've fought in America a couple of times before. We've fought in Germany on the Klitschko undercard. But for him to be defending his world heavyweight title in Manchester, in hostile territory, with a lot of things going on in the background, I think was a very good, solid experience. It wasn't Joe's best performance, but he was fighting one of the most awkward guys in the heavyweight division, and the sort of fight that I think a lot of people predicted.
Yeah, it was an intriguing fight.
Adam, that's being very kind. I don't know how intriguing it can be when you have, one guy attempting to fight and one guy attempting to backpedal for 12 rounds, and then, at the end of the fight to actually hold your hand up and think you could possibly win when you've landed a handful of punches in 12 rounds and continually ran from your opponent.
Yeah, good point.
Look, Hughie fought the way Hughie fights. He felt Joe's power early in the first round and realised if he's going to stand there and trade with them, the fight's not going to go 12 rounds. So, he thought his best options were to keep moving, and that's what he did for 12 rounds. Yeah,
well, okay, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. So, let's talk about as soon as the fight finished. Scoring it was tough to score because one fighter was sort of running effectively the whole fight, and yeah, he proved to be elusive, Hughie Fury at times. But yeah, I personally did have Joseph Parker winning the fight. But what I was surprised about when the fight ended, Joseph looked a little bit dejected. You had half of Manchester jump in the ring, lifting Hughie Fury up like he'd conquered the world. And Joseph looked down. He looked like someone who thought he'd lost. It is what I'm saying. I don't know. He's quite placid, isn't he, Joe? From what I've learned.
Joe made it no secret that he was looking to knock Hughie out, and I think he felt a little disappointed within himself that he didn't knock him out. We obviously the most important thing is that we get a win and defend the title. But for us, it was our first real opportunity to impress the UK fans and the sporting public, and it was the sort of fight that it wasn't an exciting fight. It wasn't an impressive performance because there was only one guy trying to fight, and that I think Joe realised. He realised that just the how big the circumstances were. He realised that he had an opportunity. If two guys were fighting where he could have a sensational knockout and move on to bigger fights, and I think he was a little dejected and disappointed.
Yeah. Okay, that explains a lot. So, what you talking about?
Adam, just let me add to this. If you look, just to there, as you said, there were a lot of people who jumped into the ring and a lot of hoopla and everything else, and really that means absolutely nothing until the judges' cards are read out. And let's remember, we asked for an official from New Zealand, which we never got. There was 2 American judges and one judge, Terry O'Connor from the UK.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, had the fight, 118, 110, and we thought that was going to be a very, very hard card for us to feature on, and yet he saw the fight 10 rounds to 2.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah,
it really was. Did I think there was any way we'd lost the fight? No. I sort of sitting in the corner, I thought we got off to a very good start. We won 5 of the first 6 rounds, and then after that there were a couple of times where Joe had Hughie in a position to knock him out. But Hughie's a very tough guy. One thing that Hughie does exceptionally well is he ties up, and he tied Joe up on a number of occasions when he was hurt. and that's why the fight went 12 rounds. But there were stats put out at the end of the fight, and if you look at the stats, and they're not in front of me at the moment, but the power punches were overwhelmingly in Joe's favour every single round.
Well, I don't really remember any from Hughie Fury. I remember the uppercut, but it wasn't very powerful. It was very precise, and it was a good shot.
He was moving backwards, and he threw a right uppercut, and Joe ate it, and then just walked straight through it.
Yeah.
So I think Joe realised early that Hughie didn't have the power to hurt him, and because of that, he was a little reckless at times, which made him a little sloppy.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So yeah, the lead up to the fight was full of drama and all sorts of things. You're the promoter of Joseph Parker, David Higgins, made quite a name for himself. From what I saw on social media and stuff, a lot of the English boxing fans were quite reasonably impressed with him. I personally thought, good on him for sticking up for his fighter. The problems you had with getting the neutral judges, and then he got kicked out of the press conference, and then you and Joe was sat there being very well behaved. I thought you conducted yourself very well. What was sort of going through your mind while all this was going on in sort of fight week?
Well, firstly, let me tell you, David Higgins has never been your basic promoter. He has always done things very, very unusual, and to get a reaction. And David Higgins and Dean Lonergan have two fighters under contract. One is Joseph Parker, the other is Jeff Horn. So they have two fighters, they have two world champions. So it would be fair to say that the way that they're conducting themselves, they've ended up with two world champions, so they've done a pretty decent job. Dave needed a response. He needed to make an explosive reaction. I think we got that.
He certainly did, yeah.
I think it was very, very important for Joe and I to stay out of it, to give no emotional reaction, which we did. But the end result was through the strategy of David Higgins, we had the referee replaced. So I think that we got the desired result.
Yeah. So this sounds like a very tight-knit team, and you were kind of all aware of what was kind of going to happen and going on.
Well, we knew that we had to make a stand. And David was our promoter over there, and it was his job to do that. There was no way that I wanted Joe or myself getting involved in a screaming match with anyone or demanding anything. My job is to prepare Joseph Parker to perform on fight night, not to get into an emotional reaction with our opposition. And a lot of people are very, very good at doing that, and Peter Fury and his team, that's a big part of their game and something that they're very good at. And I think it was very important for me to stay out of it.
Yeah. Okay, so it's been... So you guys, we did an interview way back in quite a long time ago now. I think it was coming up to a year ago now. And I was praising Duco Events for sort of how far they've come within the sort of lifespan. And you were talking about Duco Events as well, and talking about how you're trying to do things properly. There's been negative press about Duco Events for no real reason, from my standpoint, from New Zealand media and a couple of promoters in the UK as well, mainly Frank Warren. He was very critical about the lead up towards when the fight was meant to happen in New Zealand, but it never did. And then you guys then decided to come to the UK and do the fight so you could get the fight to go ahead, and you could build a bit more of a reputation within England, I imagine. And then Hughie's a Frank Warren promoted fighter, and then he's not even having anything to do with the actual promotion when we've got a heavyweight world champion coming over to the UK to defend his title. What are your thoughts about all of that?
Well, look, I can't really make comment on their team and the way they conduct themselves and the relationship between Hughie, Peter Fury, Mick Hennessy, and Frank Warren. That's their business. And, I'm not going to get involved in what they do. But, let me just tell you, when you said for a start about how Frank was disappointed, how things were working out the first time, Frank was very disappointed when the fight was scheduled first up in May because he had lost the purse bid.
Yeah.
If you remember, the reason why that fight never took place is Hughie pulled out with an injury.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
There was a little suspect at the time. We were already had arrived in New Zealand. We had the fight in a 12,000 seat stadium that was selling very well, and then we ended up changing opponents, moving stadium. It was an actual mess for us. So if anyone should have been disappointed, I think it should have been our team.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Joseph, myself, and Duco. But mate, I can't get involved in whether Frank's going to be there to represent Hughie or he's not going to be there. That's not our concern.
Yeah, fair enough. I did an interview with Joe in the lead up to the proposed fight in New Zealand originally, and he was saying to me, because there were problems with Peter Fury getting a visa, and he said you guys and Duco worked really hard with the New Zealand authorities to actually allow Peter Fury to come in and give Hughie Fury the best chance to win the fight effectively, which a lot of promoters don't do that.
We got together with some government officials and we supported his application, and we believe that it was through our support that got it pushed through. So, we have always said that we're not looking for any favours. We just want a level playing field, and the level playing field was, I thought that Hughie's best chances were having his father there, and that's why we supported it. And that's why when we came to the UK. And initially it was going to be all UK officials, a UK referee. Our qualms were we want a level playing field, and I think that's why you got the reaction of David Higgins, because we had a contract saying we'd have all neutral officials, and right at the last minute the British Boxing Board controlled overturned it and said we'll appoint all the officials.
Yeah.
We've always maintained that we're not looking for any favours. We're just looking for level, even playing fields, and that's why we were very supportive of Peter coming to New Zealand. We knew that Hughie's best chances were having his father with him, a guy that he relies on a lot. And so when the fight was in the UK, all we wanted was the same, is a level playing field. And initially the WBOC came out and said that they would override our contract. They said there would be neutral officials and a neutral referee in this fight, and then they appointed all the officials from the UK until we ended up getting 2 judges from the US.
Yeah. Well, it must have been a really hostile atmosphere over here. What was it like on fight night? Were things okay?
Look, I tell you what. No, we just went about our business. There were moments of how shall I put it? Of entertainment.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah.
We had Tyson in the dressing room watching me wrap Joe's hands. Tyson came back in for the gloving. He was very entertaining. He was very vocal. Tyson's a fighter that we have a lot of time for.
Yeah.
So look, I sent my son in to watch Peter rap Hughie, and there was a lot of respect there. There was nothing hostile. We felt that we'd sort of reached an agreement beforehand. A lot of people indicated to us that they thought that there would be a much bigger verbal attack on us. But what it really came down to was there was mutual respect, and speaking with Peter Fury and John Fury, Tyson, they said, look, let the best man win, and I said, well, that's all we want. We're not here to be disruptive. We're not here to be abusive.
Of course, yeah.
This is the way we conduct ourselves, and we weren't going to buy into any sort of verbal or physical altercation. We were there to do a job.
So there's quite your son was quite popular on some of the YouTube boxing channels, actually. Thanks to Tyson Fury, he seemed to take a liking to you guys, your whole team. There's been some videos of Tyson and the gang drinking till the early hours of the morning, which is quite interesting to people considering his cousin was the opponent. So yeah, there obviously was a hell of a lot of mutual respect there.
Yeah, no, there has been, and we've had on social media we've had a dialogue going with Tyson probably for the last 3 years, and even in the press conference a couple of months prior to the fight, Tyson sort of said to me, I've watched Joe ever since he was in the amateurs, and he made it no secret that he had a fond liking for Joe and our team, and that's why we wanted just to keep that relationship going and let the fight be the fight in the ring. Tyson's a fighter that we have a lot of respect for, and there was a couple of times during the lead up to the fight that I made no secret that without his performance against Klitschko, we would never have been in this opportunity. Yep. We would never have been able to win the WBO title fighting Andy Ruiz and be there in Manchester defending it against his cousin. So we have a lot of thanks and a lot of respect for him.
Yeah, it's good to see. I really hope he comes back. What did you make of the fight being on YouTube?
Well, it wasn't our decision. It was the decision of the home promoter. And
yep.
All we knew was that we had a contract saying that we had the television rights for New Zealand, Australia, and Samoa, and as long as the quality was of a certain format, they could put it on anything they wanted. Obviously, okay. They thought that was their. I've never heard any numbers. I don't know what it did. I would expect that if the fight had done good numbers, we would have heard. So I think it was a bit of an experiment. Obviously, it will be the future, but maybe they just weren't ready for it at the moment.
Yeah, it's a good point. I wasn't aware. So in New Zealand and Australia, what was it on? Sort of the New Zealand equivalent of, say, like Sky Sports or something like that.
It was on Sky in New Zealand and Fox in Australia.
Oh, brilliant. So all in all, very interesting experience. Eddie Hearn said, but he does say this about every time one of his fighters is due to fight the spoken about fighter, that your stock has gone down. What did you make of those comments?
Obviously it's a two-pronged thing. Obviously Eddie would have liked Joe to have a personal second round knockout, but the fact then after that he was realising, okay, we need to fight Joseph Parker at some stage. There is a unification fight that is going to happen. Let me start working now to bring his stock down. So that, that's all Eddie was doing. He doesn't want to pay Joseph Parker. He thinks that we're going to fight Joshua for our WBO title, and because we come from New Zealand, he's going to treat us like people from a small country. That ain't going to happen. And we're just going to go about doing what we do. We've decided just this last week that I said to Joe, we were looking at taking a fight in December. We're not now.
Okay.
I think Joe's back in New Zealand. He's got a ton of business on. We are putting together a fight early next year at the moment that we're in discussions with a potential opponent's team. A fight that I believe will be an exciting fight. a fight that people will want to see, and we're working towards that. In fact, it's highly likely that by this time next week I'll be in New Zealand with Joe.
Okay, great to hear. In terms of, so you guys have been being talked about, being matchmakered by, put together with other fighters such as Tony Bellew, who's now fighting David Haye. How were you interested in that fight?
Look, we're interested in all fights. We always thought that Tony Bellew was a great style for Joe and a fight that we would welcome. But he's got his hands full fighting the rematch against David Haye.
Yeah.
I honestly think. Look, I like Tony a lot. I think it's a guy who's done all the hard yards, and it was great to see him get that win against Dave. But I mean, David Haye's a different breed, I believe, and I think you'll see that in the rematch. I looked at the style of Tony Bellew, and I think it's a style that would work very well for Joe. And that's a fight that we would like.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens in the rematch. Obviously, there's so. What do you guys have a mandatory obligation at the moment with the WBO? Does that have to be done by a certain date?
We just took care of our mandatory.
Of course, yeah. So there's nothing you don't have to wait.
That was the single most important thing about that fight is, okay, let's clean the mandatory up and let's get a couple of fights in of opponents that we choose.
Yeah.
And then look where that takes us.
Yeah. So the WBO, you won't be ordered to fight a mandatory for definitely not the next fight. You guys have the freedom to try and make a fight with a good name.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So what do you guys think?
That's what puts us in a very very exciting position at the moment.
Yeah, it does actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the plan? Obviously, you've made it no secret that you've wanted to get involved in what's going on with the UK heavyweight scene. Obviously, you're based in Vegas, and then you've put very good shows on in New Zealand. You've created a massive following there for Joseph Parker, and we've spoke in the past about how you've sort of regenerated boxing within New Zealand and the South Pacific. What as his trainer, ideally, what are you leaning towards? A fight in Vegas, a fight in the UK, or going back to New Zealand again?
Well, look, the thing is this: right at the moment, we've decided that we've run out of time this year. We were originally negotiating with a Japanese fighter who's ranked number 9 in the WBO, Kaitaro Fujimoto.
Yep.
The fight was very close to being done. The only thing that was missing was the broadcasting dollars, and it never really worked out in the time frame that we were looking at, so we had to let it go. When that happened, there were a couple of other provisional options. One was to take a fight down in New Zealand, and we sat down as a team last week and just said, look, hey, we've had a very messy year. There's been when I say messy, it's the sort of word that explains a lot of things.
Yeah.
Considering the last 3 years, 2016, 15, and 14, we fought 5 times a year. This year, we've fought twice. So it's very important that we make a couple of adjustments, and these have to be made over the next couple of months, and we'll be doing that, and that we have Joe ready for a big year next year.
Yeah.
So a lot at stake next year. We've got to make good decisions. We need good performances. And so as a team, we're all getting together and putting a plan in place that will give us the best chance of getting amongst some of these big fights in 2017.
Definitely.
Now, hey, it may be the winner of Haye and Bellew. Obviously it could be an Anthony Joshua. It could be Deontay Wilder here in America. Wilder's team, we have a very good relationship with, and I've spoken to them a lot in the last 12 months. So we have some good options. We also have the possibility of revisiting. It won't be Joe's first fight in 2018, but there's a chance we could revisit the Japanese thing, giving them a little bit more time in preparation to get the broadcasting deal secured. So we have some good options. I want to get Joe well rested. I want to get him mentally charged up, get his body. I want to get him a little lighter again with new weights, and he's put a bit of size on. But I think now I'd like to get him a little faster, a little more mobile. I want to probably back in the high 30s instead of the high 40s.
Okay, very interesting. I was just about to ask you, actually, as a trainer, what would you like to improve? But you've answered the question for me there. But talking about what else is going on in the heavyweight division, Anthony Joshua fights Carlos Takam at late notice. A lot of the mainstream media have been sort of slagging him off, is probably the best word to use, the phrase to use, sorry, for Carlos Takam. You guys had a very interesting fight with Carlos Takam. People within boxing see him as some sort of danger.
I tell you what, if Carlos Takam, he really is a bogeyman in the heavyweight division. Before Joe fought him in May of 2015, I turned him down twice in 2015, out of respect, out of his proven record, and I know for a fact that Eddie Hearn also turned down Carlos Takam on a number of occasions for Joshua, and even after we fought him, there was an opportunity, and they turned him down. You may remember Takam sitting ringside at some of Joshua's fights. Yeah. Look, I'm happy for Takam that he's got this opportunity, but let's put it all into perspective. December he'll be 37. Look, he's been a great fighter. He's got 3 losses in 12 years. He brings a style that defensively he's very sound. He fights out of that shoulder roll position. Yeah. Excellent amateur pedigree. He was a former Olympian. He's got a great record, 35-3 with 27 KOs. He's a guy that's going to trouble anyone that he gets into the ring with, but taking the fight on 12 days notice, that's just a little unfair. I really want to believe what Eddie Hearn is saying, that that he 3 months ago he told Takam, look, I'm going to pay you this money to stay in shape, but as much as I want to believe it, it's a hard story to actually believe. I'm looking at Takam at, as I mentioned, he's 37 in December. He's not going to get too many more opportunities like this. He's going to take the fight on short notice. Yeah, of course. It's just a shame that, look, I would love to think that it's a fit in shape Carlos Takam, because I think that guy would test the stamina of Joshua, the actual challenge for me, or the competitive challenge, would be whether Joshua can actually control the distance on the outside, because if he lets Takam close, it's a fight that's going to be very, very difficult for him, and it's a fight that's going to be very exhausting for him. And we've seen Takam many times, with the work rate that he brings, absolutely exhaust his opponents with his constant pressure. So there are a lot of things in that fight that potentially could be a good fight, but I just hope it's a Takam that's actually prepared properly. Yeah, I hope so. Well,
the whole card seems to be a little bit cursed. There's sort of Commonwealth title and British title fights that are sort of falling through as the days come closer. So one fight on the undercard actually, and another heavyweight that's been linked with yourselves. Dillian Whyte takes on Robert Helenius. Now that's a fight that intrigues me a little bit. What do you think of that fight?
Yeah, well, look, we know Dillian Whyte's a pretty decent puncher. We know Helenius is he got knocked out by the Harpers.
Yeah, that's sort of.
We know that that he spars Joshua. There's also stories coming out of that camp that he was not cold with 18-ounce gloves on sparring Joshua.
Yeah.
So when you look at those sort of things and the fact that both Whyte and Joshua are out of Eddie Hearn's stable, I think that Dillian Whyte has to be a huge favourite in this fight.
Yeah. So I was just came to me then. Obviously, you were talking about Deontay Wilder earlier for maybe a unification with the WBO and the WBC belts. Eddie Hearn's trying to engineer a path for Dillian Whyte to Deontay Wilder. That could possibly be a good fight for you guys, could it not? And then the winner gets Deontay Wilder, maybe?
What's that? Us fighting Dillian Whyte?
Yeah, and then that could for like a WBC eliminator or something.
Well, we're the WBO champions, so I don't know why we would be fighting a WBC eliminator.
Yeah. Okay.
If we were looking to fight a WBC fight, we would go straight after Deontay Wilder.
Is that what you'd want? Was it you wouldn't be? Okay.
When I mentioned to you before, we have options, and that is definitely one of our options: a unification fight with Wilder. Wilder at the moment has, a couple of mandatories lined up. I think this second fight with Bermain Stavern will be a lot easier than when he challenged for the title and took the belt from Stavern in a 12-round decision. I think Bermain's been very inactive. I think it would take a miracle for him to win this fight, and I think it's a fight that the Wilder should win very convincingly and probably win very early. He has fights lined up at the moment. We've got Dominic Brazil fighting Eric Molina for the WBC mandatory, and as you just mentioned before, Dillian Whyte and Robert Helenius fighting for the mandatory after that. So he's got two mandatories stacked up, waiting for him. So when you mentioned before for us to get in line in the WBC mandatories,
I can understand what you're saying. Yeah. It was more sort of get on the point of if you win this fight and then bang, there's a Deontay Wilder fight. I just Deontay Wilder's quite hard to get a fight with by the looks of things, but hopefully
he's not for us. I can make that fight tomorrow if I wanted it.
Yeah. Well, that would be something.
As I mentioned to you before, we have a good relationship with their team.
Excellent.
JD is a classy guy, a guy that I have a lot of respect for. He's his trainer manager. Al Heyman, I've had several conversations with over the last 12 months.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting. So, you kind of because Deontay Wilder does get quite a bit of stick. Obviously, I'm not asking you to talk for Deontay Wilder, but you seem to be of the opinion that Deontay Wilder would love all these fights, but the sort of the WBC mandatories are sort of hindering that from happening.
Well, when you're the champion, the thing is this: you have mandatories. As the great Klitschko will tell us, the mandatory, which ruined the whole division. But it's very important for the fairness of the sport for the fighter to take mandatories, and even hence our last fight with Hughie Fury, out of every possible opponent that I could look at, that was the worst possible style for us, and I said that to our promotional team and our matchmaker right from the get-go, that they hated that style for Joseph, but it was a mandatory position, and we really had no option other than to take it.
Yeah, it's interesting looking at you as a trainer with your fighter, you know, a lot of Deontay Wilder's quite a good example in sort of his coming out parade. He was fighting kind of easy, kind of flattering opponents. You guys have been fighting Takam and Hughie Fury, which is just a massive pain in the arse for any fighter, which is quite interesting. So you've sort of continued to really educate Joseph at the highest level almost.
Well, as I mentioned before, I turned the Takam fight down twice in 2015 because of what he brought. There was no risk and reward. When we fought him, it was for the mandatory. So it actually meant something. Fighting Hughie Fury, a fighter that I would never have fought in any other time, except for a mandatory, because of the horrible style that he brings. You have to be smart with the styles that you put your fighter up. A trainer's supposed to know, which styles work for his fighter and which don't. And I think it's very important that you identify them and only take those the styles that you don't like when it either means something for a mandatory or for a mandatory defense.
I couldn't agree more. It's it's kind of frustrating as a reporter or a fan to see just ungenuine matchups, really, I suppose is the best way to put it. Sort of in conclusion then, so Joseph is having a little bit of a break to sort of recharge the batteries and then back out to Vegas with you, I assume.
No, actually, Joe's been living with me in Vegas probably 8 months of the year for the last 4 to 5 years.
Is that much? Wow.
And as I mentioned before, 2014, 15 and 16, we fought 5 times a year. So that was back-to-back training camps. And, my camps are here. I've just opened a new gym here in Vegas. Haven't had the official opening yet, but we've set up the gym 500 yards away from my house, which will save
perfect,
about 2 hours of travelling time a day, so it's a godsend.
Yeah.
So what I've decided, the fact that he has spent so much time living with me here, is right at this moment we have an opportunity. Joe's got a young daughter. He's been away from his family a lot in the last 4 to 5 years.
I remember you saying,
These couple of months, I think he'll stay in New Zealand, and there's a very strong possibility that by this time next week I'll be in New Zealand with him for us to train prior to Christmas, to take Christmas, New Year off, and then get ready for a very busy 2018.
Great, I'm very much looking forward to it. So, how old's Joseph now?
Joe's 25.
25. He's only 25. I was going to say like 27. So wow. So you've really seen sort of him sort of grow mentally, physically, seen him become like a man, basically having a kid. I mean, what do you make of? He conducts himself very well.
He's grown up in front of our eyes. He has, he's turned into a terrific young man, with a lot of star qualities, with a lot of real quality talents. I love him like a son, and I'm very proud of him, and I think the future at the age of 25, I think the future looks very, very good for us.
Yeah, I think that's what people keep forgetting. He's only 25. That's an infant in heavyweight division terms, but anyway, it's astonishing the what could happen in this heavyweight division with so many young heavyweights at the moment. It's very, very exciting. Kevin, as usual, it's been absolutely amazing talking to you. Always get such a great insight into what's going on with you and Joseph. I didn't know, is there anything else you wanted to add with what's going on at the moment, mate?
No, mate, all good, Adam. I've just, my phone's been blowing up while I'm talking to you. I'm about 15 minutes late of doing my next interview, so I should go.
I will let you go, mate.
Okay, buddy.
Alright, mate, you take care, Kev. Cheers, my man.
Bye.
Take care, man.